Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Jocelyn Business Talk Show. So, you guys have probably know the world is suffering from the pandemic right now, including our beloved country, Indonesia, and the pandemic hits an effect in almost all aspects or area, including the economy or in the specific, we could say business. And now, this evening, I have already had two guests that will share their thoughts, tips, and story about their business during this pandemic era. So the first, please welcome Miss Christine and the owner of Atomy Supplement, Mrs. Christine.
Hello, Miss Jocelyn. How are you?
Yeah, how are you, Mrs. Christine? Welcome. And also here we have Mrs. Jessica as the owner of Santika Hotel. Welcome, Mrs. Jessica. How are you?
Hello, fantastic. Thank you, Mrs. Jocelyn, and thank you for inviting me here. How are you, Mrs. Jocelyn?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, before we start our session, could you guys please tell me, audience, first about the business that you run or that you have? I would like to start from Mrs. Jessica. Time is yours.
So well, thank you, Mrs. Jocelyn. First, I was the owner of Santika Hotels. It's a luxury hotel, and it's one of the oldest ambassador hotels in Medan. We hold the distinction of being made up first and only five-star international hotel provided a memorable setting for business and leisure travelers. Our hotels cater to sophisticated self-assured travelers seeking opportunities that allow them to be fully present, set in the moment and reconnect what matters most. Our hotel creates nurturing environments and experience for guests through impeccable service and a commitment to restoring a deep sense that all is well. That's it, Mrs. Jocelyn.
Uh, well, what a what a good hotel. So let's move to Mrs. Christine. Miss Christine, could you please tell the audience?
Yes, Miss Jocelyn. Okay, now I'm running on MLM or known as multi-level marketing, and the brand name is Atomy, which I run in sector of health and beauty. And right now, I'm selling vitamins, which is very important for this pandemic right now.
Okay, Mrs. Christine. So let's start. What is your opinion, Mrs. Christine? I mean about this COVID-19 pandemic because as you know, like you explained just now, you sell the supplement.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for that who lost their beloved one because of this pandemic. And I hope that this pandemic will be over soon. And I think that in this kind of pandemic, this vitamin is so important for our body. Yes, and I hope that everyone become aware of that not just when they are getting cold or sickness until they become aware for their health.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, Mrs. Christine and Mrs. Jessica. Uh, what about you? How you see this pandemic, especially how does it affect your business because you run a hotel, right?
Yeah, in my opinion, COVID-19 is a challenge to both our life and livelihood. The crisis is unprecedented and moving quickly, and yet it's still deadly until today. The COVID-19, which shook the launching industry particularly hard, and it turned many hotel business upside down. Like so many industries, hospitality will also see both subtle and substantial shift in the pandemic era. It is undeniable that I actually feel that hospitality is at loss in this pandemic. Revenues have decreased and the number of visiting has decreased drastically. Even not gonna lie, actually, there's one day there was no visitors at all, and I hope this pandemic will pass on.
Well, yeah, I hope so, Mrs. Jessica. And let's move to let's move. So, what the program or plan that you guys run or make in order to strengthen your business in pandemic right now? Started from Mrs. Christine.
Well, due to COVID-19, we know that so many people lost their job. So we have this program of a health that has a much more reasonable price so that everyone can consume vitamins. I think that's all, Miss Jocelyn.
Mrs. Jessica, I'm seriously about your program or plan, because you run a race business, you have a risk business in this pandemic right now. So what's your plan or program?
Yeah, so in response to current circumstances running to commitment in pandemic, we have implemented a variety of new protocols and elevate practice keeping with our high standard of cleanliness and luxury service. We are providing a server environment for our guests and associate is the top priority contactless QR code means in a restaurant service request through our mobile app and room service orders delivery right together store. We have made several upgrades to our cleaning through our property and in guest rooms. We also create promos to attract visitors.
Yeah, let's move to next one. So this right now, this question is kind of extreme. I start from Mrs. Jessica. Okay, do you believe that your business will survive in this pandemic?
To be honest, at first I don't think that my business will survive since it sounds kinda impossible due to unstable income. Many employees have to have their salaries cut and even fired. The costs incurred are also very large to meet health protocols during this pandemic. Even a lot of spending issues to attract the attention of visitors again. At the beginning of the pandemic, because it was still unclear what is pandemic, there were many incidents that harm our hospitality, such as a visitor that one of them is affected, and we need to deal with this accident rapidly. And actually, I can't imagine how much flaws I've experienced. However, I persist until now. I'm proud because, as you can see, my business has survived and even start to stabilize again.
Wow, what's a good answer, I think. Let's move to Mrs. Christine. Do you believe that your business will survive the pandemic?
Yeah, I truly believe that my business will survive beside of law of attraction, and I think that this is what market needs right now, what people need right now. Vitamin, right? And I think that as long as COVID is still in our environment, my business will still ongoing.
Yeah, I do think so because many people will look for the vitamin or supplement. So, what is your tips for business people, Miss Christine, in this pandemic situation? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, for myself, I think that we have to have one business, oneself, one step view, especially conventional business. I think you have to run through business which can help you through this kind of situations. That's all, Miss Jocelyn.
Uh, what about Mrs. Jessica?
Actually, it's a kind of hard for business since hotels face the prospect for a long recovery. Over the coming months and years, property circumstances will vary based on a number of factors like including chain, scale, location, and demand profile. Many hotels are wondering what steps to take and in what order. So the tip is hotel must care for their employees, stay engaged with them through the pandemic, and also keeping themselves when they return. They must manage customer expectation, recognize that this will continue to evolve, and prepare to act agilely to address health and safety concerns, and they must revise their commercial strategy for the restart with an eye toward to the next normal.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Jessica. So this is the last of our session, and Mrs. Jessica, started from you. Maybe could you please give some motivational words to people whose business probably affected by this pandemic?
Yeah, so I can see that like in a crisis, it's easy to panic and throw out your game plan. My advice is to avoid the temptation as the COVID-19 become real. Our leadership team turned into the guiding principles we established a year ago. While we observe the priorities, addressing the principle help us remain disciplined and give us a framework for decision making. As a result our franchise partner and team members understand and embrace the action we are taking, and since hotel is weathering the crisis decrease well because of that, I believe we will emerge and even stronger. The crisis this crisis therefore is also an opportunity. Those who stay the same will lose, and those who leave will win. That's all, Mrs. Jocelyn.
And how about you, Mrs. Christine? What is your message?
Ako nga, ano yung pwede mo?
Actually, I agree with Miss
Oh, thanks.
Jessica. Right now, it's time to be creative and know what your market needs, and of that stay healthy, eat clean, and don't forget to take your vitamin everywhere, every day. I think that's all.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Christine. I think you are really good. So, ladies and gentlemen, we finally arrived in the end section of our talk show. And before we end the talk show, I would like to thank Mrs. Jessica and Mrs. Christine for being able to join us in the talk show. And before I close the show, I also would like to thank the audience, and I would like to say sorry if there are any words that might be offended or not suitable. Or don't forget to always watch Jocelyn Business Talk Show every Thursday at 8. And I'm Jocelyn Vijay, and thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.